And now, Chambermaid, introducing business owners from across the Southwest.
Hello there and welcome back to the Chamber podcast In Conversation With. And in the second half of our show, this is the Chambermaid, M-A-D-E, not M-A-I-D, where we speak to Chamber members about what they've been up to, about all the developments, all the exciting things going on. And we've got a sort of strange double-header today, which you'll find out in a minute. I've never done this before. We've got one person on Zoom and one in the studio. The person we have in the studio is Mark Trewin, who is Chief Digital Transformation Officer at City College Plymouth. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Stuart. Good to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for coming into the studio and having a chat. So I understand City College Plymouth has become a Google college, and why? What does that mean?
That's a great question. So Google Reference College is an accolade that Google have bestowed upon the college. They don't just go and do that to colleges randomly. You have to apply for it. You have to demonstrate a whole series of everything from leadership, behaviours, application of technology, looking at things like sustainability, how you apply that to teaching and learning, or as we call it in the business, pedagogy. And then the application of all of that stuff and the impact it has on the important people, which is for us, our students and our community.
And that's, I guess, using a lot of Google technology.
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, there's probably a myth about Google technology that it's different to other technologies. It's different in that it's mostly cloud-based. There's hardware involved as well. We have a lot of Chromebooks and those devices, which our students absolutely love. And they're an alternative to a laptop or a PC, but we have PCs and Macs as well. But I guess the thing about Google technology, it's very, very translatable in the current digital skills market. So if you're very good at using Google technology, you're a very good technologist. If you can code, for example, in Google, your career in coding will be enhanced as being able to do such a thing. And the transferability between other popular platforms that offer similar products it's very straightforward. So the Google ecosystem for us, and the big why, was even before the reference college bit, it provided us with what we deem to be the best, most agile platform for teaching and learning, bar none. It has, like other products, it's got a range of facilities where you can type documents and use spreadsheets and do things like slideshows and you know the other products kind of names that kind of goes with that. But it's got other things that make it really sing for us, which is it's got a classroom environment, it's got a way of building online communities, all of the kind of online digital meet features and chat facilities, all of the stuff that you see in contemporary digital practice is available to all of our students and staff. And that gave us a really unified way of looking at digital technology, if that makes sense. And we wanted a platform that gave us the best possible security, because as you know, cybersecurity is top of everyone's agenda.
Hot topic, yeah. And
it's a very hot topic. And globally at the moment, education, it might have changed since things happening in Europe have probably changed. But I think even currently, education is the hardest hit in terms of cybersecurity and threats. Right. And Google offers us the best protection as far as we're concerned at City College Plymouth. And if you look into those particular attacks, they do come through some fairly obvious routes, and email's one of them. And the protection that we get from Google is second to none. Google's got the biggest reference to what's going on in the world right now in terms of threats to its technology. So we benefit from that. You can imagine this huge global tech giant, when they adapt their services and products, we benefit from that straight away. We don't have to wait for updates. We're not waiting for people in IT to upload things and put new software in.
My favourite thing.
It just happens. Yeah. And it's been the best move for City College Plymouth in terms of digital strategy. It's been the underpinning of where we're going with digital.
Okay, so that must have been quite a transformation, because you're not a small college, you've got a lot of staff, a lot of students, a lot of kit. And I understand that helping you with that transition was Jamie Farnell-Smith, who's the Executive Chair of C-Learning and Director of Delling Cloud, who, if the technology is working, should be joining us by Zoom now. There he is! It's worked!
Wow.
Jamie! Hello,
Stuart,
welcome.
Stuart, Mark, good to see you.
Hi.
Thanks for letting me zoom in.
Oh, no, it's great. So the technology works. This is great. So why did you support and how did you support the college through this transition?
Okay, so there's two elements to that question. So why did we support the college this transition? Well, it's what we do. We support thousands of educators all over the world, really, in about 30 different countries last time I was counting. Now, if you ask why do we do that, I mean, to give you a personal perspective on that, Stuart, it's because it's what we believe in. It's who we are. Most of our team are from education. So in my career, I've worked in universities, schools, and colleges, and been in roles similar to Mark's. And it's who we are. It's what we're passionate about. We believe that education is the most powerful tool we have to create a smarter and more sustainable world. That's the mission of the company. So that's the why in a sort of high level sense.
Yeah.
In terms of what we did, I think by the very nature of what we do, because we're a top Google partner, and I think by the very nature of that, we tend to naturally end up working with some of the most innovative, progressive organizations in education globally. And Mark's organization is a classic example of that. So when I first got to know Jackie, the chief executive, and Mark, the chief digital transformation officer, and all the wider senior team, immediately I was in front of people who had a credible strategic vision for sustainable transformation and innovation in education. And I suppose from an employer's point of view, because we're a significant employer in terms of what we do, I saw an organization that was very much aligning to high growth progressive industry. Mark there mentioned a few key words that struck a chord with me around agility, building communities, for example, because that's essential in our business world. Our team are based all over the world in several different countries. And if they couldn't build collaboration and communities online and using these technologies, then we wouldn't be very commercially successful. So I saw a college and a leadership team that was very much aligning with the future direction of high growth industry. And so from my point of view as chairman, it's always very exciting to work with people who are sharing that journey and sharing that vision that you're on as well. So we're immensely proud to support such an inspirational college. And as Mark said, they're the very latest Google reference site. And I think the point about that is that it's not just a badge. It's not like just getting some award or something like that. It's actually recognition from one of the world's top most successful companies that they see in the college and what everybody's achieved there. An organization that is really in the vanguard of progressive practice when it comes to sustainable innovation. They don't hand it out to anybody who's just achieved a certain milestone. They hand it to an organization that they think is able to maintain that progressive practice over a sustained period of time. There's very few organizations that receive it. In fact, I think there's only 2 I know of this year. Wow. And Mark is in one of those organizations. So there's a bit of a Silicon Coast movement going on down there on the South Coast, I think.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations. I had no idea it was such a high accolade. And obviously that's important to the college, but what does it mean to the wider community and to the business community particularly? Why is it important?
Okay, I guess there's a few things there, Stuart, to bear in mind. One is that we can show a real alternative for businesses in terms of what technology can do for you. And it really doesn't matter on the size of the business, because you're looking at probably one of the most scalable available technologies on the planet. Again, think about that security aspect and the kind of the global offer that Google has and what they can offer us. So in terms of businesses, we already support small businesses with pockets of training around kind of specific digital skills and tools. And it might be a first time a business might be going completely online with, let's say, their calendars and emails and basic inventory, really simple things like that, right through to more complex things about how they go online and start to look at selling products and what the kind of skills that you need with that. Google as an infrastructure, it's dead simple. For me, I've worked in colleges and I've worked in technology for a long time, and businesses and colleges and institutions were very, very reliant, I felt, on highly technical people that knew how grey boxes in colleges worked or inside their businesses worked and how they wrapped around and firewalls and security and blah, blah, blah. And rolling out and scaling technology was quite an expensive thing, but Google's kind of, it's made it very accessible to many people. For example, it wouldn't take you very, very long at all to have a Google domain for the chamber, for example, and you could be issuing email accounts and looking after kind of cloud-based storage and being sure that all of your data was safe and secure in the cloud. And you might be a technical person, but it's not that difficult to do. And I think that's part of the appeal. In terms of our community, again, it's about the programs that we offer and getting students that come through, anybody that comes through our doors, they have a digital experience. So even if you're doing a highly practical subject like brick or plastering or working in the kitchens or whatever it is, everybody has a virtual classroom. They have virtual learning resources. They can access it 24/7. All of their marking and the majority of their work gets submitted in evidence in a digital format as well. You don't get to lose your homework. The days of the dog get my homework is unless your dog's a cybersecurity dog with a digital tail, it's not possible. Yeah. So the 24/7 nature, the connectivity. One thing we have to tackle as a college is digital poverty. So not all students have access to devices. We work really hard to make sure that every student that comes to the college has access to a device. And if need be, they also have access to a 4G or a 5G device so they can get online as well.
Yeah, that's really important. And you kind of preempted a little bit one of the questions I was going to have for you. You talked about it being easy to use. And actually, I've started using Google to share board documents. So we've got a central drive and people can comment on them. And
Simple, right?
Well, it was in the too difficult to do box, to be honest, and I'll come back to that. But it's having done it, I'm so glad I did. But I think historically, and we can use brand names, we're not the BBC. Historically, you're either someone who loves technology and thinks it's really powerful and you love playing the sort of the back end of technology, in which case you're a Microsoft fan, or you just want something to turn on and work, and that's you become an Apple fan. So I've got an Apple Watch and an Apple phone and an Apple iPad, all that sort of stuff, because I don't like the technology. I just want it to work. So where does Google fit into that?
I would say Google's closer to Apple than the kind of the Microsoft offer, in my view, that is. And there are people that are very loyal and wedded to their various platforms.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I was a huge fan of what Microsoft did for technology and business and education in the 90s and early 2000s. But Google came along and really disrupted that. And you need that. You need that in education. You need that in technology, because otherwise you'll be stuck with the same product and the same old. So, I mean, at the college, we acknowledge and accept all of the other technologies. We're not saying that they don't exist and they don't matter. They really do. But in terms of a solution that's supported the kind of work that we want to do in the way that we want to do it, and as Jamie said, that sustained innovation piece, that all students and all participants, whether you're an adult returning to education or whether you're straight out of school, whatever that means, that you get a strong digital core through what it is you're doing, and you're learning these skills through your subject, through your passions, and through the kind of the stuff that you want to do as a student. So, for example, our students are now really familiar with using collaborative documents, which is something that, it's something that it's not unheard of to us now. It's quite common for us, but it's not what's happening across the UK, for example. How students can pull together reams of information and work collaboratively to produce things like magazines or video footage or websites, and collect evidence and do work in different ways that actually inspire learning. The creation and the problem solving bit and that collaboration piece is so hugely important to what we do at the college, because we want students to come into the college and not just remember facts and how to do and pass exams. That's great, and if you need to do that, that's fine. But come out with problem solving, be collaborative, be creative, find those solutions, be entrepreneurial. How could you start your own business using this technology as well? And there are great examples of people leaving the college and starting that very thing, starting their journey into business, but having an understanding of what social media is and how you exploit those technologies to get your foothold in that kind of first step towards business. So there's plenty of that kind of stuff, really, and if you just think about the accessibility of it and the affordability, it works really well for education. I mean, it is the best. I think it's the best option for any college or any university or any school. Most of Plymouth schools, for example, use Google. And it's weird how FE sort of breaks down into it's probably more popular with Microsoft, but in my view, that is generally a decision that's made by people that are quite wedded to it rather than people that are quite innovative and explorative with what's out there.
So that sort of leads me on to a question for Jamie, which I think you're the right person to answer this. I hope so. So I mentioned that I've started using Google. And it was do Google Documents, shared drive, just to make sure that the board can look at documents. I can securely share them without sending them by email. They can open them and comment on them without having my email chain packed out. But it took, I don't mind name checking, Paul Burton in PB Media next door to me to show me how to start that process. And once he'd help me set up the basic first folder, if you like, and how to upload one document, I'm a fan. I'm there. I'm playing with it. It's easy. It's intuitive. How do we get people over that first step? Because for an old fart like me, I'm scared of the first step. In the same way that when we, I always said we should be streaming our events in the Chamber, of course, to reach out across Devon. But it was in the too difficult to do box until the pandemic came, and then suddenly I'm the world's expert in Zoom because I had to be. So how do we get people over that first step where we get the friendly arm around the shoulder says, let me just show you how good this is?
So yeah, absolutely. Sorry, can I just jump in there?
Yeah, Mark? That's a Jamie question. Sorry, Mark, shut up.
I think, Stuart, you raised so many really fundamental points there in the conversation we're just having there. Firstly, I think we're all afraid of things we've never seen before. We're all afraid of something that we haven't used before. That's just human nature. And in terms of evolution, it's what kept us alive in terms of evolution. So it's very natural for us all to be a little bit afraid of something we haven't tried before. But I think, as Mark was touching on just previously as well, I think the real power of technologies like Google, or for me, any technology, what we really want is something that's simple to use and makes our life better. I mean, isn't that what we want from technology? Whether we're in a business or whether we're in a college, a school, or a university, we just want technology to do what we want it to do as easy as possible. And I think that is where Google has a pretty much unrivaled kind of proposition, and that's why it's number one in education globally. It's about well over 200 million active monthly users now using the technology that's used at City College Plymouth. So it's number one globally. But there's also 6.5 million companies. Some of the world's leading companies have all now shifted to Google, whether that's PwC, Pfizer, Roche, Airbus. I could go on. There's another 6.5 million of them.
I won't ask you to list them all.
Now the interesting thing about that, and I don't want to head into slightly controversial territory here about our age, because I'm of a certain age now myself. But if you look at the 1.4 billion Gmail users, for example, globally, the average age of them tends to be below 35. And if you look at the average age of, say, an alternative email provider that we all know of from we grew up with, well, there's about 400 million of those left, and they tend to be over the age of 45. So we have this interesting challenge, don't we, about we can see where the future is, because obviously all those 1.4 billion people who are using Gmail, for example, are younger than I am, and they're the future. So I think
they can't be under 20, surely.
Well, I like you. I think you've made the key point there, Stuart, with your question there, which was how do we change that? How do we give people the confidence and the skills and the ability to use the best technologies for us today? Now, for me, that's a combination of two things. If you happen to join a company like ours, well, obviously you get the training and support and everything else as part of your training of joining the business. But I think this is where colleges like Mark's have such a fundamental role to play, because I know it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but I live and see it every single day. I work with people like Mark every single day, and I see exactly how they're transforming, quite literally, in a literal sense, the life chances of the communities that they serve. So for anybody who might be an adult learner, for example, who happens to be within the proximity of City College Plymouth, or even they could take a course online from home through the technologies that the college has. You might be an adult learner, and I think there was a government report that came out not too long ago that said there was about 13 million adults in the workplace today who lack basic digital skills. Well, the best way they can get them is to get in touch with a college like Mark's that delivers outstanding provision using technologies that are easy to use and you can access anywhere you happen to be. Mark mentioned that word agility earlier. Well, the technologies that the college has enables you to fit study around your busy, complex life. And I think you just need that training and support and help. And of course, there's nowhere better to get that than from a college. And I would encourage businesses in the region as well to absolutely engage with City College Plymouth, because they are really an extraordinary resource in their locality, which is there to serve the business community as well as the wider public. And I think that's the place to get started. And as you said, Stuart, you only need a few minutes of somebody saying, here's how you do this. And there you go.
Well, that's the thing. So how do we get rid of the big and scary thing? So let's say I decide the chamber, I want to take it to be a digital, to be a Google chamber. I've got 10 members of staff and I want to reach 1,000 businesses. Is it big and scary and expensive? Am I going to spend months and months of project management to try and get this to happen?
Do you want me to chip in first, and I'll hand over to Mark?
Mark can tell me how easy his job is then,
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Firstly, not big and scary at all. I mean, that's the whole power of Google is how easy it is to use. And in terms of cost and things like that, Again, this is where Google has a very unusual offer, because there's an entirely free version of Google, for example, that's available to you, which you could choose to use depending on who's using it and in what way. And then depending on who is using it, if you took advice from a top partner like ourselves, we would always give you objective advice and guidance on the best type of licensing model for you, because Google also offers a range of paid subscriptions as well. That's what most businesses use, for example. And in fact, most educators have now moved to a paid version of Google as well, simply because of the world-leading cybersecurity functionality that's built into it, but also the teaching and learning functionality you get with Google's most powerful solution. And because it's also very, very cost effective, it's a lot cheaper than alternatives. The adoption is sort of quite significant, as well as the impact. So I don't think I think the thing I would say to anybody who's scared of making a change or scared of trying something new is welcome to the club. Everybody's scared of something they haven't tried before, so you're in a safe space. Don't worry about it. We're always learning as well, by the way. I learn as much from Mark as he probably does from anyone in my team. And it's about teamwork and a partnership and a collaboration. And that's the thing, again, that because of the technologies that Mark's college has and City College Plymouth has deployed, they're able to collaborate and support businesses in a very different way that in my opinion, to use business term, gives them a competitive advantage, because I can use the services of the college from anywhere I happen to be in the world very, very easily on whatever device I happen to be on. So they're using not just the world's greenest and most sustainable technology, by the way, but they're also using the most agile and platform agnostic technologies as well, which means that you can widen access and participation to a much wider range of stakeholders and members of the community that you serve. So they really are quite an extraordinary college.
So that's led me on to the next bit. So two-part question for Mark. I mean, firstly, how easy is your job? Because it's that easy, right? You just turned on Google one day and it all worked. And secondly, what's the impact for business?
Okay, so how easy is my job? That's an interesting question.
I'm sorry, that's a terrible, awful question, but go on, try anyway.
Well, the digital transformation strategy at the college, and the work that goes with that is part of my responsibility at the college, along with teaching and learning and apprenticeships and opportunities and some other bits and pieces. So Jackie keeps me very busy. You'll be pleased to know, and you'd expect nothing less. In terms of how easy was it? Well, we had a foothold. The teaching community at the college, I'd been working with them on Google prior to the digital transformation strategy, and we were seeing real benefits, we were seeing real engagement, and we were seeing a suite of tools that the intuitive bit, now you've nibbled off a little bit of your problem. How do I share these documents? How do I keep it safe? You've taken that tiny leap. Yeah. What Google's very good at is making your intuition follow the next thing you want to tackle, because their approach to use their technology is very consistent. So what you've learned already is, I would say, is probably the beginning of kind of opening and expanding your horizons. So in terms of the adoption of the technology, it wasn't 100% across the college. So in January 2020, just before the pandemic, Jackie asked myself and my colleague Paul Fanshaw to look at systems and processes, it was called, at the college. And we started doing all kinds of exercises around pain points, some really good stuff. So again, if any of your community want to take that approach and find out what either their customers think of their technology or even their employees think of their technology, most powerful exercise we undertook was that, because we knew exactly where people were feeling like their productivity was being impacted, their well-being was being impacted, their frustration, and all this kind of stuff. And then that gave us a kind of a basis of which, how do we start making some significant decisions that are going to have the longest lasting impact and get some quick wins as well. Little did we know that there was this flu symptom issue happening around the world at the time.
People might have heard of it.
And then came March. We had to make a decision, and our decision was: are we going to go for Google or not, or are we going to look at Microsoft Teams and the Microsoft environment? We'd had so much benefit from using Google already, and I saw nothing in Teams that was going to give us anything back other than a new problem, because everybody would need to then be retrained to use the new stuff. And I couldn't see the benefits either. I couldn't even see the value in that move. I mean, there's some great stuff in the Microsoft thing, but for us, Google was a better decision. So we decided Google was going to be our platform. It was going to support remote teaching in lockdown. And much like your problem that you had, how do you get the chamber online, and how do you start, making that live kind of piece? And you had to do it. We had to do it as well. But we had a distinct advantage that the base level of skill across the college was already very good, in that there were pockets of excellence. We could refer to that. We created a system called Google Champions. So people that were very good at Google skills, we signposted them, created a community of practice around that, put some training resources in place, and people were pretty much ready to go. Apart from the thing that I guess the hardest challenge for us at that time was our hardware strategy had moved away from portable devices to black boxes that sat on people's desks, including the telephone, by the way.
Oh, no.
So you've got 650 staff, and every one of those got access to a telephone that's got a wire on it. And
how very old-fashioned.
And you press some numbers on it, and that's
you didn't turn the dial then? You spin it with your finger?
We had some of those. We had some of those. Yeah, we had some of those. There might have been a novelty one. But anyway, so we had this. We did have a small problem in that, a sizable
big problem, yeah.
That we had this technology that wasn't agile. How could we send people home with these machines that would only work when they got plugged in by an Ethernet cable into a server, into a secure network, and all of that stuff? So our massive action, to quote Bill Gates, to give him some credit on this, so our piece of massive action was an immediate response to a hardware problem that we had. We just didn't have the devices. So every portable device that we could get our hands on, whether it was an iPad, whether it was a tablet of some description with Android on it, all of our laptop inventory. We even got laptops that were probably beyond their use and brought them back from the dead so that people could take these devices home and work, including students and whatnot. Again, another thing that Google brought as an advantage to that was, if you've got old technology, you can install Chrome onto it and it breathes new life into old technology, because it doesn't need that bulky operating system that our two big operating system players outside of Google Chrome require. I mean, there's Linux as well, but that's another thing. So we were breathing life, and we were giving devices to students to keep. Old laptops that we turned into Chromebooks, just have it, because as to us as a business, it would run its useful life as what have you, and we were able to hand that technology out. So so a big thing was around the hardware, and luckily at this point just prior to this, we had partnered with Jamie at C Learning, and because they're a Google Premier partner, they were able to source us a large number of Chromebooks fairly rapidly, so that our students had access to devices. And so that was the good news story. And I won't even tell you that we had a first month of the pandemic, we had a fire in our IT department that wiped out hundreds of devices as well.
Oh my God!
So you can imagine, it was, you can imagine the scene and the look on our IT staff's face and everything else. Anyway, we overcame that. We got the right devices in the hands of the students, the people that mattered, and we carried on. So it's a combination of bringing the staff of the community on board. The harder to reach is the business kind of community in the college. So the kind of the more administrative functions, the finance, the HR teams, who are very wedded to what they do and how they do it. And we're still working with them. Their uptake of using Google technology is great now, and it's pretty consistent. We've got some diehards who need very specific things, and that's okay, and that will always happen. And we work with partners that use different technologies as well. So we have to be universal and flexible. But our core technology is Google first. As a college, that's been part of our strategy since then, and it's paid dividends, I have to say.
That's fantastic. So I've just got one more question, then we must wrap up. And this is, I guess, to both of you. So the Southwest has an amazing potential as a powerhouse of the blue-green economy. We're talking about sustainability, regenerative power solutions, marine autonomy. You name it. We're there with blue-green. How could Google, in less than a 20-minute answer, how can Google help that?
I'll chip in just for a little bit then and hand over
thanks.
to Mark. So just some headlines that people may not be aware of with Google technology. So they are the world's first truly green cloud ecosystem, if you like, that businesses or educators can use. They've been carbon neutral since 2007. Wow. They will be net zero by 2030. They are as of right now today, they are the world's largest producer and consumer of entirely renewable energy. And if you were to take, for example, the technologies that Mark was just referring to, Chromebooks, that they've deployed in a very progressive way again, as is typical of City College Plymouth, they tend to want to be at the forefront of innovation with whatever they do. So they deployed Chromebooks. Now, why does that relate to green and renewable energy? Well, the Chromebook, as a bare minimum, will use 48% less energy than any other comparable computing device. It will typically last up to 8 years, has unrivaled return on investment, but also that has an impact on landfill and the components that are used in the manufacturing and then eventually the recycling process, because it means that you are getting about 2.5 times more use in terms of time out of that device over 8 years compared to a typical laptop, which might last about 3.5 years at best. They're also made from far less components, and they're designed to be recycled as well. So, and they use some very advanced artificial intelligence to maximize battery life and other things as well. So whichever aspect of the college's technology ecosystem you look at, Google have world-leading credentials. I could talk a lot more about it, but I think that it just as a bare minimum, the fact they're using carbon neutral cloud technology in the way that they are, and that they've deployed Chromebooks in the way they have, puts them right in the vanguard of progressive practice in both industry and in education, actually. Mark, I don't know if you would want to add to that.
Yeah, I guess in terms of then the application and the use of that technology in this kind of green and blue economy is, if you think about all of the things you said, the agility, the platform agnostic nature of Google, the collaborative nature of Google. So if we're going to work as a Southwest ecosystem and really reaping the benefits of what that means in terms of, preserving our kind of what goes on under the water, how the technology works both under and over the water. Think about what Google's brought to us in terms of maps and that kind of data that it can bring to us. It has excellent cloud warehousing in terms of storage and data security as well. Again, second to none. They're the best in the world leading technology available. And I guess Google, unlike a lot of the other products that we talk about, Google has the unusual ability to customize what it is. So some of my super kind of Google brains now at the college are doing Google scripting. They're writing Google code straight into the product. So if the product doesn't do what you want it to do, and you want it to do something specific, maybe it's something around geolocation or kind of artificial intelligence or data gathering or whatever that is, you can actually hack, if you like, Google to the point where you customize its spreadsheet facility or its data kind of gathering facilities to do what you want it to do.
But in a safe way.
In
not
a safe
like the
way.
open source system that is
completely safe. And you can connect this stuff together and it all sits within your domain. And this is the beauty of it. So your security settings, your accounts that you give out on your terms, you share your information in only the way that you want it shared. We're doing some bonkers things with Google Apps scripting, and we've got a course running at the college right now. One of our lecturers is a fanatical person when it comes to Google Apps script, because he's, as far as he's concerned, he's now got all of the power possible in terms of creating new ways of working, creating automations, harvesting information. So we've got a range of staff now who are starting to use Google in a way that I don't see in many other colleges at the moment either. It's this Google Apps script thing, I think, is something that we as a college will certainly be developing, but also sharing with our community. So the schools in Plymouth and the businesses, etc. We're aiming to have a Google symposium in the new year, so more to come on that. We haven't pinned down a date yet, but I'm hoping sometime in January. And that will be a mixture of educators, businesses, curious people wanting to go on programs, courses, sharing best practice, but also bringing together some of the best thinkers, contemporary thinkers in that kind of business, education, pedagogy space.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm a convert already, and it's funny because I sort of intimated at the start, I get very frustrated when technology doesn't simply do what I want it to do. So I'm glad you said that, Jamie. And in fact, I saw on social media a post, you've probably seen it, saying the band Rage Against the Machine never said what machine they were angry about, but I'm pretty sure it was a printer. And I think we've all had that frustration with technology when it's not doing what we want, and we want to reprogram it with an axe, that sort of thing. But hey, I'm a convert. We're going to have to wrap it up. But I'm really grateful you took the time. Jamie Farnell-Smith, thank you so much for joining us. And to Mark, congratulations to college. Huge accolade. Thank you. Please keep us posted. Let's see how we can work with you in the business community. And thanks both for keeping us entertained and informed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very happy to be here.
In Conversation With is produced by Fresh Air Studios. Full audio production services for podcasts, live links, and corporate communications. Visit freshairstudios.com. Presented by Stuart Elford. Produced and engineered by Paul Philpott. Edited and mixed by Martin Burgess-Moon. Production support by Lisa Hartwell. Copyright Devon and Plymouth Chamber of Commerce and Fresh Air Studios Limited. All rights reserved.